Europe lay in ruins after World War II, yet from the ashes of conflict, a new struggle emerged, the Cold War. The Iron Curtain divided East from West. Fear of Soviet expansion gripped Western Europe. In the shadows, a secret operation took root, Operation Gladio. This was not a conventional war, it was a clandestine conflict fought with whispers and subterfuge. Operation Gladio was a network of secret armies. They were trained and equipped by NATO and the CIA, their mission to resist a potential Soviet invasion. The existence of Gladio remained hidden for decades. Its exposure in the early 1990s sent shockwaves across the world. Questions arose about the true nature of the operation. Were these stay-behind armies a necessary deterrent against Soviet aggression? Or were they a dangerous experiment in covert warfare that went too far? Operation Gladio remains a controversial chapter in Cold War history. It raises profound questions about democracy, sovereignty, and the use of clandestine operations. The origins of Operation Gladio can be traced back to the early years of the Cold War. Western leaders feared a Soviet invasion of Western Europe. They believed that conventional military forces alone might not be enough to stop the Red Army. A secret plan was hatched to create a network of resistance fighters. These fighters would operate behind enemy lines in the event of a Soviet invasion. NATO, with the support of the CIA, played a central role in establishing and training these stay-behind armies. European intelligence agencies also collaborated in this clandestine endeavor. Countries like Italy, France, and Germany all had their own Gladio networks. These networks were composed of carefully selected individuals. They were often former soldiers with experience in guerrilla warfare. They were trained in sabotage, espionage, and assassination. The Gladio networks were kept secret from the public and even from most elected officials. This secrecy would later fuel controversy and suspicion. The exact nature of Operation Gladio's activities remains shrouded in secrecy. However, evidence suggests that these stay-behind armies were involved in a wide range of clandestine operations. These operations included assassinations, propaganda campaigns, and even false flag attacks. The goal was to destabilize communist movements and governments in Western Europe. Gladio operatives were trained to blend into society. They posed as ordinary citizens while secretly carrying out their missions. One of the most controversial aspects of Operation Gladio was its alleged involvement in false flag attacks. These attacks were designed to appear as though they were carried out by leftist groups. The aim was to discredit these groups and create a climate of fear that would benefit right-wing governments. The use of such tactics raised serious ethical and legal questions. It cast a dark shadow over the entire operation. The assassination of Eduardo Mondlane in 1969 is often cited as an example of Gladio's deadly reach. Mondlane was the leader of Frelimo, a Marxist-Leninist movement fighting for the independence of Mozambique from Portuguese colonial rule. He was a charismatic and popular figure who posed a significant threat to Portuguese interests in Africa. On February 3, 1969, Mondlane was killed by a bomb planted in his office in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. While the Portuguese government denied any involvement in Mondlane's death, suspicions immediately fell on Aginter Press, a shadowy organization with links to both the Portuguese secret police and Gladio. Aginter Press was known to employ former Nazi operatives and to specialize in assassination and sabotage. The circumstances surrounding Mondlane's death remain murky to this day. However, the case highlights the murky world of Cold War espionage and the lengths to which Western powers were willing to go to achieve their objectives. Section 5. The American Response, Denial, and the Fog of War. When news of Operation Gladio first broke in the 1990s, the United States government initially denied any involvement. However, as more evidence emerged, the U.S. government was forced to admit that the CIA had indeed played a role in establishing and training Gladio networks. The U.S. government maintained that the purpose of Gladio was purely defensive. They claimed it was intended to deter a Soviet invasion and that it was never used to undermine democracy in Western Europe. However, many critics remained skeptical of the U.S. government's claims. They pointed to the fact that Gladio operatives had been involved in numerous acts of violence and destabilization that had nothing to do with resisting a Soviet invasion. The U.S. government's denials and half-truths only served to fuel further suspicion and distrust. The truth about Operation Gladio, like many Cold War secrets, remains elusive. Section 6. Gladio's legacy, shaping perceptions of Western intelligence. Operation Gladio cast a long shadow over the Cold War and beyond. Its exposure raised profound questions about the accountability and transparency of Western intelligence agencies. The idea that NATO and the CIA had been involved in training and arming secret armies in democratic countries was deeply unsettling to many. It fueled suspicions that Western powers were willing to sacrifice democratic principles in the name of fighting communism. Gladio also had a corrosive effect on trust in government. If Western intelligence agencies were willing to operate outside the law in peacetime, what other secrets were they hiding? The revelations about Gladio contributed to a climate of cynicism and disillusionment. It made many people question the true nature of power and the limits of what governments were willing to do to achieve their objectives. Section 7. Unanswered questions. The search for truth and accountability. Despite numerous investigations and inquiries, many questions about Operation Gladio remain unanswered. The full extent of Gladio's activities, its chain of command, and its ultimate goals are still shrouded in secrecy. Many key documents relating to the operation remain classified. This lack of transparency has fueled speculation and conspiracy theories. Some researchers believe that Gladio was part of a larger strategy to control and manipulate public opinion in Western Europe. They argue that Gladio operatives were involved in a wide range of covert operations. These included influencing elections, discrediting political opponents, and even carrying out terrorist attacks. While these claims are difficult to prove conclusively, the lack of transparency surrounding Gladio makes it impossible to rule them out entirely. Section 8. Gladio's impact on democracy, undermining trust and transparency. The revelations about Operation Gladio had a profound impact on the way people viewed democracy and the role of intelligence agencies. The idea that unelected officials could operate with impunity, carrying out covert operations, and even engaging in violence was deeply troubling. It raised fundamental questions about the balance of power in a democracy. If governments were willing to subvert democratic processes in the name of national security, what was to stop them from doing so again in the future? Gladio also highlighted the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of transparency and accountability. In the wake of the scandal, there were calls for greater oversight of intelligence agencies and for the declassification of documents relating to Gladio. While some progress was made on these fronts, many argued that it was not enough. They argued that true accountability would require a full and honest reckoning with the past. Section 9. Cold War Paranoia or Justifiable Measures. Debating Gladio's morality. The debate over Operation Gladio often centers on the question of whether the ends justified the means. Supporters of Gladio argue that it was a necessary evil, a justifiable response to the very real threat posed by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. They argue that Gladio played a vital role in deterring Soviet aggression and ensuring the security of Western Europe. Critics, however, counter that Gladio was a dangerous and undemocratic operation that ultimately did more harm than good. They argue that Gladio's activities undermined democracy, destabilized governments, and resulted in the deaths of innocent people. They question whether the threat posed by the Soviet Union was ever great enough to justify such extreme measures. The debate over Gladio is likely to continue for many years to come. It is a reminder of the complex moral dilemmas that arose during the Cold War. Section 10. Gladio in the 21st Century. Lessons for a New Era of Global Politics. Although the Cold War has ended, the legacy of Operation Gladio continues to resonate in the 21st century. The revelations about Gladio serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of transparency and accountability, and the enduring allure of covert operations. In an era marked by new threats, such as terrorism and cyber warfare, it is more important than ever to learn the lessons of the past. Governments must resist the temptation to resort to extrajudicial measures in the name of security. They must be held accountable for their actions. The public must be informed about the activities of their intelligence agencies. Only through transparency and accountability can we hope to prevent the mistakes of the past from being repeated in the future. Section 11. Conclusion. Operation Gladio and the enduring enigma of secret warfare. Operation Gladio remains one of the most controversial and enigmatic chapters of the Cold War. It is a story of secret armies, clandestine operations, and the dark side of Western intelligence. While the full truth about Gladio may never be known, its legacy continues to shape our understanding of the Cold War and the challenges of balancing security and democracy in a dangerous world. The story of Gladio is a reminder that even in the darkest of times we must never abandon our commitment to the rule of law, the importance of truth, and the enduring power of human rights.